Welcome back to another episode of Basis Picks. Live edition, first time ever. Thank you very much for being in attendance. Please like, subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It is appreciated. Now, as you guys know, we're here for one major reason, which is obviously the Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou event taking place tomorrow. There's actually some other boxing on this weekend, believe it or not. You got Stephen Butler against Steve Rolls on ESPN. I think there's a big card in Japan as well. I think they're all taking place on Saturday. I won't be getting into any of those, primarily because the only one of the fights where I could give an informed opinion would really be the Butler and Steve Rolls fight. But that being said, I'm actually interested in watching that. So I'll keep my opinions to myself on that one, but I will be sort of taking a look and taking a gander when that one pops up. Might have to get out the old VP treatment to check it out, because I know it won't be on Sky Sports. With that being said, thank you very much for anyone who is already in attendance. I'm gonna let the list populate for just a little bit longer, but I'll big up to all the all the people in the building thus far. First person in today was Tony, my co-host from the Breakdown. Thank you very much for being in attendance, Tony. Yasmin Malik, thank you very much for being there. Big up to yourself as well. Blessings and greetings as always. Philip Answer in the building as well. And Yasmin says, looking forward to this. Yep, I'm looking forward to it. It's a brand new experience for me. I'm going to try not to look at the chat and the opinions of the chat when I'm actually going into my deep dives, but I definitely will be interacting with you guys in between each particular pick that I do make. But yeah, big ups to any and everyone that is watching, that is tuned in. It is appreciated. Like I said, I'm gonna let it populate just a little bit longer. I'm gonna give it another 2 or 3 minutes before I start getting into it. So just if there's any stragglers, they can get through all of it as well. I started on time, but as you know, some people, especially like my co-host Tony over there, likes to run on BPT. So I'm gonna give you all the opportunity to make it in. Anyone in the chat, can you just let me know how's the music sounding? Because I can't actually hear it. I'm tuned in on a different stereo, so I can't hear it, but I know it's playing in the background. So just let me know what the sound's like. Is it okay? Can you hear me all right? Is it too high? Do I need to turn it down? Is it too low? Do I need to turn it up a bit? Let me know. Philip says he can hear it. Okay, as long as it's clear and concise, and it's not muffling my voice, and you guys can still hear me nice and clear, that's the main thing. Okay, I can hear it. Sounds fine. Sound is good. Level's good. Okay, brilliant stuff. Yes, just a couple more minutes, and we're gonna get into the picks. But I guess while I'm waiting for that, so the Stephen Butler and Steve Rolls fight, it took me by surprise, because I knew it was happening, but I just forgot that it was happening this weekend. So yeah, Tariq Mirza, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for contributing to the chat as well. Much appreciated. I'm loving the fact that every time I come on these lives now, I'm seeing different names, even names that I might have seen on the Undefeated channel, but all of a sudden I'm seeing them here, and it's the first time interacting as well. So it just shows that the channel itself, even if it's not growing as such, like, the community is strong, and the community does follow each other and support each other. So big up and much respect to you guys. But yeah, Stephen Butler and Steve Rolls, I think so Stephen Butler's got a record, I think it's like 33-4-1, and Steve Rolls I think is like 22-3. So it's a very technically it's a very evenly matched fight. That being said, obviously we know that Stephen Butler is more so the I guess he's more he would be more the top rank person in this particular fight, although I think he is a part of Eye of the Tiger Promotions. Let me just double check. because he's from Canada, and ESPN normally their Canadian fighters are all managed by Eye of the Tiger. Let me just check this event. Montreal. Oh no, it's a Lou DiBella. Okay, so it's a Lou DiBella promotion. Yeah, Eye of the Tiger management. Camille Estefan, Lou DiBella. Yeah, so they're doing it over in Quebec. Montreal, Quebec, Canada. There's also Osleys Iglesias against Marcelo Ceros on that card. Actually, no, that's not Saturday. That's taking place tonight. Who was that? What was I thinking? So yes, I've got some good work to look forward to tonight before we even get to the event tomorrow. So maybe if that's the case, I might talk about those two fights just a little bit. There's a couple of female fighters on the card as well. Jahan Obrio, okay, I know that name. Luis Santana, Mozvaladin Bialusanov. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna be checking that out tonight. I'm gonna stay up for that one. Fidel Tawaldi, big ups to you. Yeah, look, tomorrow's gonna be a vibe. The event's gonna be a vibe. The card's gonna be a vibe. I got a feeling there's going to be a couple fights to underperform and underwhelm, but overall, I do think it will be a pretty good card, and there's going to be a couple talking points. But I also think there's going to be some things that people, gassed up, but they're not going to take place, or it's just going to be business as usual. We'll get to that in a little bit. Yeah, look, Stephen Butler, Steve Rolls. Quick summary, I think Steve Rolls is the better operator. So Butler's sort of the stronger and the harder puncher of the two, but he's a guy that's sort of every fight that he's lost has been via KO, and he's been KO'd by I'm not gonna say non-punchers. I'm not saying he's ever been KO'd by a non-puncher, but he's not got the best chin. And I think Steve Rolls has actually is more durable and is a better operator. Butler, I don't think has been in there with the same level of operators as Steve Rolls had and actually survived. You've got the Adam Connolly fight, Jose Jesus Macias, Ryota Murata KO'd him in 2019. First KO Brandon Cook in 2017. Yeah, I'm gonna go for Steve Rolls to win this one. I think he's slicker. He knows how to protect himself better, and yeah, that's what I'm gonna go on this one. I just think even though he's a much older guy, I think he's just got enough to see out this test. Iglesias and Ceros, I think Iglesias is gonna win via knockout. And I think it's going to be rather special when that does happen. I think it could potentially be a highlight reel knockout. Osleys Iglesias is a very, very dangerous super middleweight. Obviously, Cuban southpaw, so you know how they get down. But yeah. But all right, with that being said, now we've got quite a few people in the building, so we're gonna get to the card we're all here to talk about. I'm gonna go through the majority of the card, but I'm not gonna be able to. I can't do every single fight purely because I don't know enough about everybody on the card. I only know sort of the top six fights. So we'll talk about those, but we do have to just give respect to the people just underneath that. So let me just get the other card up on this phone just so I can go through the list. I want to go through it in order as well. So from bottom to the top. Okay, so first fight on this card, I do believe is going to be Andre Nowitzki against Juan Torres. So let me change this to right. So this fight, let's take a look at this bout here. So you've got Nowitzki who's 9-0 against Torres who's 11-5-1. Torres 37. I believe Juan Torres is actually he's a part-time boxer, and I think he does MMA primarily, so he's got some MMA skills about him. So I guess this could be another, you know, what you'll call a crossover fight. He does box, but he's more of an MMA guy, or he does that more often. So I'll be interested to see how Nowitzki works on this one. From what I've heard and what I've seen, he's not the biggest of punchers, but obviously Ukrainian heavyweight, 6'6", very nimble, very you know, sort of got good footwork, good hand speed, good combinations. I'm interested to see how this one goes. I'm not going to give a prediction because I don't know enough about both guys. But I'm just going to say I expect Nowitzki. This is probably like a showcase fight for him, a little highlight fight for him. So I'm expecting him to show up and show out in that sense. Next on the card, I do believe it is Zayed Al-Mayouf, aka Zizou Al-Mayouf, a good friend of the channel of Undefeated. I've tasked Tony with getting him back on the channel after this fight, so that we can have a catch up from the last time that we spoke to him. He's fighting Christian Lopez Flores. So obviously Ziyad is 4-0 at the moment. Christian is 14-35-2. So even though you can quite clearly see that he is a journeyman, the level of experience he has is vast. So I don't know if this is a case of he's just brought in there to just give the work, or if they believe he could actually, you know, provide some problems. But, you know, when you look at it, I mean, what are we looking at? 51 fights in total. You know, so he's got 47 more fight pro experience than Ziyad. While that may not necessarily mean much, it could mean a lot. But Ziyad's 4-0 with 1 KO, and I think that KO happened in his first fight. It was a first round KO. I remember that fight quite well. It was just one of those, he flurried the guy. Then I think he hurt here. Did he hurt his hand after that one? I think he hurt his hand after that, which is what kept him out of the ring for like 8 months. No, 6 to 8 months. And then he came back, and then he's gone points since then. I remember the second fight was contentious because I think he got dropped in his second fight. He touched the canvas, knocked down in the first round, and he somehow managed to get even. And I think people said he lost the second round as well, but he managed to get 37 on scorecards, which would either suggest that he got given a 9-9 in the first round because he was the more aggressive, and the knockdown did come against the run of play. So possibly you could say, all right, well, he maybe did enough to make it a 9-9 instead of a 10-8. But yeah, fortunate in the second fight, but in the third and fourth fights he done pretty well. So this one obviously is going to be in there with someone with the most amount of experience. I'm expecting him to come through it. I do like his jab. Obviously he should have Buddy McGirt in his corner. All you're going to hear probably in the corner is, use the jab, go to the body's here, the body. That's what I'm waiting to hear, because I'm almost certain that's what I'm going to hear when there's no crowd in attendance at the time. Because we all know Buddy McGirt loves body work. I think the next fight on the card is going to be Roman Fury against Martin Spark. So Roman's 3-0 and Spark is 2-0. So I guess it's a battle of the unbeatens in some way, shape, or form. And Roman Fury has gone up to heavyweight. They said that he can't. He says he feels weak at cruiserweight. Obviously, I guess they're not going to really have him competing at Bridgerweight at this point in time. So I've got no comment on that. I mean, look, as y'all know, I really don't care anything about any of the Furies. I wish him well. I hope he comes out of the fight healthy and safely. 3-0 with 1 KO. So another Fury with a lack of power. Martin Spark, never heard of him, but he's 2-0 with 1 KO, so he's actually got a better KO ratio than Roman Fury does at this point in time. But it is what it is. No particular comment on that one. Next one though, Jack McAn and Louis Green. Now I think this is going to be a very interesting fight. So you got McAn, who's obviously 9-0-1, and if I remember correctly, the draw he had was, I think it was a South African, Emmanuel. Is it Emmanuel Masinga? Is he from South Africa? Switzerland. Oh, Switzerland by way of Cameroon, so not South Africa. My bad. But yeah, I remember that fight. It was a 6-rounder, and him getting the draw was one of those ones you say it was fortunate. It was a bit fortunate, but since then they dialed down the level of competition a little bit, kept him active in that year, and you will see like he started to sort of come into his own and get some more of that power that he was lacking sort of in those first few fights. So keen to see what Jack McAn does. I mean, Louis Green is Mr. Business. He's 16-4 with 1 KO against him, 10 KOs in the win column. 31 years old, but he's not coming to play. So yeah, Jack McAn's gonna have to be on point, but I do think that he will come through this fight. It's gonna be some sticky moments in there. I think he's gonna take some big shots in the early rounds, but I think he'll sort of weather those and sort of come on strong towards the back end of the fight. I don't think he's gonna stop Green, but I do think he's gonna make it clear and obvious that he is the winner. So I'm going to predict him to win via a unanimous decision. Okay, so that's the entire before the bell portion of the card. Now we can get to the good stuff. We can get to the stuff that people are paying for, the main event side of things. So the first fight up on the main card is Justice Hoone and Kevin Loreno. I'm really looking forward to this fight, not just because Justice is a friend of the channel, a good guy. Spoken to him a couple of times, had him, if you would have seen, I had an interview with him a few days back. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you go watch that. He's very keen and looking forward to this fight, but I like his style, I like his technical abilities, I like his movement. The only bad thing the only thing I would say he lacks is punching power. But I think the problem is, in his first few fights, he was doing well and getting people out of there, but he decided whereas he was breaking people down. So he was working to the body, he was sticking the jab, putting the right hand behind it, jabbing, boxing and moving, and keeping on the peripheries, just in and out, raiding, and he was wearing his opponents down. He then decided that he wanted to prove that he's got power, and decided to start stepping in the pocket, high guard, and just trying to do rock'em sock'em. You punch, I punch, you exchange, I exchange, I'll counter your punches, I'll throw when you throw, and everything like that. Now, admittedly, his fights are a lot more entertaining when he does that. Not that they weren't entertaining before, they were still very good. Like, he was a very fun fighter to watch, but they're more entertaining now, but there's a lot more risk involved. He's just in the pocket, sometimes to his detriment, because there's certain times I've seen him get hit with shots that he would have never got hit with before, purely because he wants to stand there and prove how tough he is. And that's not something that I believe he has to do, because he is just that talented. As a sort of an amateur and a high level sportsman, that he doesn't need to do it. And obviously I know that he backs his chin. Again, he's part of that big Samoan bloodline, the Polynesian community, the Australasians, they're all built teak tough. So to him he feels like, even if you can hurt me, like, it's going to take a lot for you to do damage. Now on the other hand, you've got Kevin Loreno, who I still find it funny that his nickname is the KO Kid when he's 30-2 with 14 KOs, so a less than 50% KO ratio in his entire career. But he is very much a pride of South Africa. And when he was at cruiserweight, he was a very, very capable operator. He was quick, he was nimble, he had very good head movement. If you see obviously the size of his legs, he's got a Mike Tyson-esque build from back in like 84, when, you know, 83, 84, you just see he's got those really thick calves. He's got those big quads. You know, he can do that what do they call it, the standing squat, the squat peekaboos that he does in the training. You've seen him do it. So he's got good dexterity, and he knows how to hunker down, stay low, and spring up with shots. Now, I think when he came to heavyweight initially, he became way too big, way too fast. So he looked very sluggish on his feet. Remember the Daniel Dubois fight? Rather than, you know, using his movement, using his speed to his advantage, he started trying to plow forward and plod forward and inch forward rather than trying to set up gaps and stuff. Obviously that didn't serve him well in the second and third round once Daniel was a wounded animal. I still have issues about the way that fight was stopped, but that's neither here nor there. Totally different time. But with this one, the way I see this fight playing out, I think it looks like Kevin Loreno has actually shifted a little bit of weight at the minute. And the fact that he's, it looks to me like he's in better condition than he has been in his previous fights. He had a fight at Bridgerweight against Riyad Murhi last year, I think at the start of last year, which looks like he's now operating at a weight that's much better for him. At one point, I think he went up to nearly 235 pounds. So I don't know what he weighed in on the scales. I haven't actually seen the weigh-in. I was out, but I'm going to assume he's in the mid to low 220s. And if that's the case, I think that's a really good weight for him. He will have a speed. I feel like he will have a speed advantage over Justice. I think power will be similar, but I think Justice is going to have a general a technique. He'll have a better ring craft advantage. So it's all going to be about, I guess, who can control the center of the ring. If Justice stays in the center and makes Kevin Loreno have to move around him, operate around him, then he can basically pick him off from the blind side, especially when Kevin's having to move underneath the shots. But if Kevin can, you know, push Justice back on the back foot a little bit, I feel like Justice is going to have a lot more issues, because he needs to be front foot heavy in order to generate his power, or at least have his feet planted. If he's boxing on the back foot, he still might have a little bit of snap on the shots, but I don't feel like they're going to be as impactful as they could be. That being said, though, I do think Justice will control center of the ring. He's going to be the naturally bigger guy in there. He'll probably outweigh Kevin by about 15 pounds or so, maybe 20 pounds by the time the fight night comes. I see a scenario where he catches Kevin Loreno and puts him down in the mid rounds, but I do think that Loreno will be tough enough to get through that. But my prediction for that fight is going to be Justice Hoone via unanimous decision. I don't think he's going to be able to get a stoppage. I know he wants one, but I don't think that's gonna come in this fight. Not saying it won't. I just can't particularly envision it, purely because Kevin Loreno, especially from the workout, he looks like he's a lot more comfortable with the weight he's got, and I've seen how he's able to sort of move when he's at a slightly lower weight. And I think the dexterity he'll be able to take a little bit of mustard off of the punches from time to time. So yeah, my prediction is Justice Hoone to win that one via UD. Now let's go into the chat, just see if there's any comments on that fight or any of the other ones. All right, Tony says he's on it with regards to Ziad Al-Mayouf. Okay, Lorena lost his mother yesterday. Bless him for continuing to. Right, I did not know that. Okay, that can do one of two things. You know, condolences to him, blessings to him and his family. That can either spur him on, so I think this fight definitely goes the distance, or that can put his head all over the place, in which case his defense is going to be leaky and he could get stopped early. Based on what I know of Kevin Loreno, he's a tough guy. I would imagine that loss is going to spur him on, so now he's actually got something to fight for. He's got the memory of his mum to fight for. So yeah, I definitely think the fight's going to go the distance now. I do still think Justice wins, but I think it's going to be a fight where not necessarily that he struggles, but he's going to have some problems in there. And the fact that Loreno is going to stand in front of him, Justice is not going to. He's not going to use a lot of his boxing skills. He's going to try and fight in the pocket. He's going to try and invade the pocket and hold center ring. So look for a very fun fight between those two. Next fight on the card, I believe, is the Magomed Kurbanov and Israel Madrimov fight. This is an interesting one. It's weird that fight would be there when it's actually got a world title on the line above the or below, I should say, Mark Chamberlain and Gavin Gwyn. But I can see why that one makes more sense to have a bit later on the card. But yeah, Madrimov and Kurbanov. So this fight it's going to be a technical affair. I don't see it as being very action-packed. Kurbanov is a very tight, sort of compact and tidy fighter. I won't say he doesn't necessarily move a lot, but he's got good movement, decent fundamentals. But he has had the rubber degree on several occasions, and he is only used to fighting in his native Russia. Obviously, sort of the Russian fighters, Uzbek fighters, Kazakhstani fighters, Ukrainians, they all sort of have a certain style that that they employ and that they work with. But the Russian one was the standard bearer for a long period of time, but now it's the Uzbekistan seem to have the edge in terms of that amateur pedigree that translates best within the pros. Now, the one problem with both of these guys is they've both been inactive. Madrimov's last fight was April last year, and Kurbanov's last fight was May last year. So one month between them. So while you can say that they've both been at the ring for a little bit of time, because it's similar, so I guess there's no real big advantage over either one. I will say that Madrimov is the more naturally talented of the two, but Kurbanov is probably the more technically responsible, or the more sort of technically drilled. He does everything sort of to the T of his training, whereas Madrimov likes to switch it. He likes to pivot round angles. He likes to throw from unconventional angles in the ring, and he likes to sort of put on a show. But he'll put on a show at a time when maybe it's the fight isn't won for him. So with that, I can see the first few rounds, I can see Kurbanov actually sort of having a lot of the control in those first couple of rounds. Using the jab, using sort of the footwork, in and out raiding style, very similar to maybe like a Dmitry Bivol, keeping just close enough that Madrimov has to stay alert, but not close enough where he's going to be in striking distance after he initiates his punches. I can see the tide changing in that one, sort of in and around, I would say sort of around 4 onwards. I think Madrimov might work out the timing, work out the tricks. He might have downloaded enough data to say, okay, every time I've done this, Kurbanov does that. Every time he does this, he moves here. And I feel like those first 3 or 4 rounds is going to be him just trying to, basically process everything to initiate his next phase of attack. And I do think from sort of round 4 onwards, you're going to see like highlight reel moments from Madrimov, at least one around. Whether that's a highlight reel punch, maybe a movement, a step, maybe like Kurbanov throws a shot and Madrimov does a very slick defensive move to get out of it, and with a big counter on the back. But I can see something like that happening in all the rounds preceding that, to where he just starts sort of banking those rounds and picking those rounds up. Kurbanov is fairly tough as well. I mean, look, the fact that this, I believe, is going to be his first fight out of Russia will be an interesting scenario. What's he like traveling? But I do think that this fight goes the distance, same as all the others that I've spoke about previously. And at the end of it, I do think that Israel Madrimov would have done just enough. Actually, no, he would have done more than just enough to end up getting this via a unanimous decision. I'm thinking maybe a 116, 112, maybe 115, 113 type scenario. Very possibly maybe even a 117, 111 if he nicks one of the sort of the first rounds. But I do think from round 4 onwards, it's pretty much going to be the Israel Madrimov show. And then he can use this as a platform, as a launching pod to move on and step forward in his career as the new junior middleweight WBA champ. It's not the super championship, but it's also will be the only recognized championship as well, because Jermell Charlo is champion in recess now. So yeah, he won't be the super champ, but he will be the legit champ of the division, unless Jermell Charlo comes back and obviously wants to fight for it. The next fight on the card, I believe, is Mark Chamberlain and Gavin Gwyn. This fight is going to be very, very interesting to me. Mark Chamberlain, 14-0. I think he's got 10 KOs. So, you know, he's got some power to him. Lightweight contest, you've got him. And then you've got Gavin Gwyn, who is 17, 2-1. But he's not really the KO guy. 5 KOs, but has lost one of his fights via KO. Now, the interesting thing about this fight is, you know, Gavin Gwyn, I think it's fair to say, was initially brought in to the Queensbury roster to basically be fed to you know, the sort of the up and coming guys in the roster. I think it's fair to say that I don't think that's an inaccurate, you know, a guy with a good name, good test, and you know, if you get past him, then you're maybe ready for that European level, and then, you know, possibly to fringe world and world level honors. But Gavin Gwyn decided that he had other plans ultimately when they said that, you know. So Sean McComb got defeated, Jack O'Keefe got defeated, Luke Willis defeated, Craig Woodruff, they had a draw the first time around, so they had to run it back. But in the rematch, Craig Woodruff defeated, KO. Emiliano Marsili, now this one obviously there's an asterisk there because Marsili threw out his shoulder in there, and I think definitely that Gavin Gwyn was losing that fight quite badly. I mean, he may have come on the second half of the fight, but yeah, I think he was on a road to a defeat there. But you know, he ended up getting the victory. Now, Mark Chamberlain is definitely a much bigger he's a much bigger test. And when you look at Chamberlain, I said 14-0, 10 KOs, so he's definitely more of the puncher of the two. Gwyn is the much taller guy. I believe he's riding at just about 6 foot, and Chamberlain, I believe, is 8.5, 5'9", somewhere around there. So the height and the reach is going to be with Gwyn, but the power and I think the explosiveness is going to be with Mark Chamberlain. This fight, I guess, is all going to come down to those early rounds and how they both start. If they decide to start, if either person starts fast, I think that they'll be able to accrue enough damage in the first 2 or 3 rounds to basically make the fight theirs. But if they start a bit slower, and both of them maybe start slower, then I think it will be about who can control the pace of the fight a bit better. Who's got a bit more of the nous and the experience. Now, the experience of the fight definitely goes to Gwyn. But lightweight, 6 foot, like 6 foot, 6'1", he says he's still able to make the weight fairly comfortably, but I don't know. I mean, look, Chamberlain's a big guy as well. I know he was desperate to get on the scales and get back to the buffet table, but Gwyn is also a big guy, and I feel like him losing the weight takes a little bit more out of him. He's a tough individual, but he is susceptible to being caught, especially through the high guard. When he has his hands a bit lower and he's boxing more at a bladed backward stance, he's a lot more protected. But he does like to try and come forward in the high guard, and I can just see Chamberlain throwing maybe one of those short uppercuts right through the middle, or a straight right through the middle of that guard on several occasions, and possibly buzzing Gavin Gwyn. Now, I think this is I think it's a 10 rounder. Yeah, so I think in the first couple rounds, Gwyn's going to be able to impose a bit of his size. He's going to be able to maybe dominate a bit more of the center of the ring, but I think he's going to start to get pushed back and walked back from about round 3 by Mark Chamberlain. And I do think that Chamberlain's going to land often and consistently throughout the mid rounds. I think Gwyn will manage to survive those. He'll have a late salvo. He'll come back into it about sort of rounds 8-9, but I think that Chamberlain will close strong in the 10th, with Gavin Gwyn possibly having to sort of survive a bit more. So because of that, my prediction for that fight is for Mark Chamberlain to win it via a unanimous decision. I wouldn't be surprised if a stoppage does occur in this fight, but I just feel as if Gwyn is not gonna want to be, taken out on the biggest stage of his career, the biggest platform. I still feel like he feels he's got more to go, and if he does well in this one, he could potentially get brought back to another Riyadh season event, and I don't think he's gonna want to go out flat on his back or get stopped by the ref. So I do think he's going to go points, and that's the prediction for that. Let me check the chat to see if anyone's in the building. Big ups to you, JC, ringside reporter, each and every time. Very, very appreciated, Mr. Joe. Okay, so with that now being said, we go to, I guess, the third from top fight, which is, now this is going to be a really good one. So Ray Vargas against Nick Ball for the WBC featherweight championship. Oh no, sorry, I wasn't referring to you. My bad. I wasn't referring to you. Yeah, that wasn't for you. Yeah, no, but big ups to you, JC. Much respect. Where was I now? Yeah, Ray Vargas and Nick Ball. So, Ray Vargas, 36-1. One loss was to Oshaki Foster back in 2022? I think he lost to him at the end of 2022. He hasn't been in the ring all of last year. No, sorry, it was February. It was February 11th, 2023. So he's been out of the ring from for a year and a month now, 13 months, which is, a long time, especially being a 6-footer weighing in at 126. I feel that even though he said, "Oh, look, I went up to a weight that wasn't my weight," I don't think going up there and trying to come back down at the size he is and the age he is works in his favor. Now, the problem is obviously him being nearly 6 foot. Nick Ball is about 5'2", 5'3", 5'4" absolute most. So if Vargas can remain tall in this fight, and I mean really tall, it's going to be very hard for Nick Ball to land any significant headshots. So I can feel that the majority of his attack is going to be about exploding towards the body. He's going to be using those body shots to try and break Vargas down, to make him hunker over so he can eventually get an uppercut in on the inside or a big overhand right, get into a clinch, get on the chest and just work there. Now, what Vargas does have is very good ring generalship. He's got a very good jab, he's got very good distance control, and he's got very good range perception. So when it comes to all of that, those first few rounds, especially when he's fresh, those are going to be really, really problematic for Nick Ball. Unless he manages to land a big shot early in the sort of the first round, which like gets all of Ray Vargas's respect, he's gonna be fighting for real estate on the inside for every moment of every round, especially sort of between rounds 1 to 4. But I feel like having invested in the body a little bit from, you know, maybe getting a couple shots here and there, I can see Vargas slowing down from sort of like the 4th round onwards, and at that moment, that's when I can kind of see Nick Bull starting to take over this fight. I can see Vargas having moments after that, especially sort of in those mid to late rounds where he's gonna take some rounds off. He's gonna manage to get his win back, and he's gonna, you know, he'll sort of come back into it. And no doubt Nick Bull is gonna get caught with a lot of sneaky shots, whether it's a sneaky uppercut, whether it's a, you know, sort of a left hook off the pivot, maybe even straight rights, because Nick Bull sometimes when he rushes in, he doesn't rush in defensively responsible. He will leave his head there to get caught. And if Vargas has got any snap left in his shots, he will definitely catch some of those. And I can see a situation where maybe Nick Bull starts to get a little bit tentative about trying to rush in and step forward. But ultimately, I do think he is gonna apply steady pressure, constant pressure. The work rate, I feel, is going to be his biggest key to victory here. And I do think that just because of that work rate, he's going to manage to take just enough rounds from Ray Vargas in this fight to win. But I think it may even be a split decision. I can see a scenario where it's a 115, 113 both ways. But with Nick Bull just doing enough to get over the line, and maybe Vargas taking too much rounds off, just being sort of out conditioned. Like I said, I don't see him getting stopped by Nick Bull. I don't see that one happening, but I do think that he will get outworked. Nick Bull is obviously, he's been a lot more active and he's a lot fresher than Vargas. So that is my prediction with that one. Let me say what JC is saying. I do like and respect your boxing takes, though. I appreciate that. Thank you very much, man. To me, Vargas kind of fragile. His defense is sus. Bull's got to get on the inside and stay on his chest. Yep. Tone, big up to you. Bull is a little bull. He is. JC, Vargas doesn't have the power to balance himself out. Yeah. But because he's got all the other defensive qualities, I feel. Yeah, I mean, look, his high guard is not great, but he's not gonna lose a battle of the jabs with Nick Bull, and Nick Bull's not gonna be trying to jab. So if he can, like I said, if he can maintain range, which I believe he will be able to, it will be very interesting, and I can see it going both sides. I can see a split decision. Karma, big ups to you. Thank you very much for being in attendance. Much appreciated. Always happy to see you. And thank you very much for being here. You're just in time if you've just tuned in, because we're getting to the chief support and the main event. So I guess without further delay, that's where we're going to go next. Now, let's talk about Zhang Zhilei and Joseph Parker. Yeah. This fight is, I feel this fight's probably going to be the most eventful. I feel like a lot of things are going to happen in this one. So just want to get, there's a bit of information I want to collect. So obviously you've got Zhang, aka Zhilei Big Bang Zhang, and then you've got Joseph Parker, aka Lupiso Ali La Alioa Malatoa, and yeah, so you've got one guy who, like myself, good Capricornian kid in Joseph Parker, was written off for a while. Looks like they've come through the wilderness, through the problems, through the struggles. And then you've got Zhang, who had a renaissance from 2022 onwards. You know, many people think that he should have been the IBF mandatory. Many people think that he beat Filip Hrgović. Admittedly, I did watch the fight again a few months back in, I think, October, and I actually scored it to Hrgović, just about. But I can understand, obviously, why people think that Zhang won, and initially I thought he won that fight as well. Then you've got, obviously, Joseph Parker, who lost to Joe Joyce. You know, got brutally beaten down for 11 rounds, knocked out, although he did get up just at the count of 10. So, you know, he still kind of almost tried to beat the count. He still had more to go. Came back like 3 months later, you know, lackluster performance, but then back again in May, then October, then December. Now he's back again in March. Activity is the key, and he's managed to turn his career around, and he is the definition of getting the bag at this point in time. He's managed to get bags from Matchroom. He's managed to get bounds from Sky Sports, and a Boxer. He's managed to get the bag from Queensbury. Now he's got 3 Saudi bags in a row. Like, he's living life. And obviously that shows what happens when you're there and you're prepared to take those hard fights, take those risks. Obviously, you got Zhang, who then basically, you know, did to Joe Joyce on 2 occasions what Joe Joyce did to Joseph Parker. First fight, dominated, you know, busted off his eye, stopped him on his feet within 6 rounds. Second fight, didn't. What was it? It was a 3rd round brutal KO. You know, Joe Joyce ended up in the sleeping position on the floor. He still, to his credit, did get up, kind of, but he was in no condition to carry on that fight. So, yeah, you got Zhang that's just a problem. Now, I've got my predictions league that most people know that I am a part of. I had to do those earlier on before I saw the weights and found out that Zhang has come in at this one in 291 pounds. I don't know what weight that Joseph Parker is coming at, but I'm going to assume it's around 245 to 250, in and around that range somewhere. So what that tells me, well, it tells me one of 2 things. Number one, either Gelé feels like he's going to have even more power now that, you know, he's at the higher weights, because when he was at a little bit of a higher weight against Joe Joyce, the power properly translated even more than it did the first time. Or it's going to tell me that potentially he might have a slight injury, or he might have been coming off of a problem, hasn't been able to get the weight off, and then we've got a bit of a Martin Bacoli and Carlos Takam situation where he's basically going to go all out for 4 or 5 rounds, because that's all the conditioning he's going to have in him. I don't know which one it is, but it's tough. Prior to finding out his weight, I had a whole different idea of how this fight was going to go, and I gave a prediction separately to that. But here's what I do think is going to happen, or what I feel I will see in those first couple rounds. If in the first round Zhang doesn't throw very many punches, he's going to go the distance. He's going to look to sort of go later into the fight and put a devastating try to sustain a beating on Joseph Parker systematically throughout the fight. If he tries to throw a lot of shots in the first round, and from a lot I would say is like 20. If he throws more than 20 shots in that first round, that to me is going to tell me that he is looking to get this fight over and done with. He's looking to make a statement, and he is looking to exact that big bang. Joseph Parker is going to have to be extremely careful in those first few rounds. He's going to have to employ a very similar tactic to what he did with Deontay Wilder, in that you don't back off, you don't allow him to dictate the center of the ring. You keep just far enough out that you can't get hit with, like, I guess, the straight punches, but you don't get too close that you can get caught with one of Zhang's hooks, because his best shots are his bent arm shots. Even though he's got a very good razor backhand, a straight backhand, his arms aren't the longest, so he likes you to get in close for him to be able to exact that. So if Joseph Parker can basically try and raid the pocket, get in, get out, and move and pivot, and make Zhang have to turn with him, especially if he makes him turn on his right hand side, that I think is going to be his best options, especially in those first early rounds. Obviously maybe then stepping in, trying to stab to the body and try to wear Zhang out in that fashion. For Zhang, I think his best tactic is, if he can minimize all type of movement that he has to do, if I was him, I would probe Joseph Parker with the right hand, but I would feint the hook with the right hand as well to stop Parker from trying to pivot onto his right side, even though it means that he's because obviously he's going to want to stay away from, I guess, the power hand, which is the left, but we know that he's got a very dangerous right hook as well, so you don't want to get caught with that. But if Joseph Parker can keep that right hook, if Zhang can keep the right hook and keep him standing in front of him, then he won't have to keep pivoting and turning with Parker and setting his feet. And if that's the case and he's able to control the fight in that fashion, he will be able to break down and sort of get those relevant shots off and work Joseph Parker out in that in that moment. And I feel like that will be his keys to success. Here's how I see the fight playing out, though. I do think in those first rounds, Joseph Parker's got a very, he's very durable to the body. He's got a very good chin. He's got, good powers of recovery. But I feel he's going to try and take the fight to the second half. He's going to try and wear Zhang down, and he's going to try and stop him late. But I think in those first 5, 6, 7 rounds, I think Zhang is going to be the ring general in there. He's going to control a lot of the pace. He's going to execute the more eye-catching shots, the harder shots. Parker, I feel, is going to be happy. He's going to be able to sort of withstand them. He's going to throw with him. He's going to trade at times as well. But I feel like when it comes to, I guess, maybe the damaging effect of each shot, I feel like Zhang's shots are going to register a lot more than Parker's are in those early rounds. Now, look, when it comes to sort of the second half of the fight, look, everyone says that, Zhang, he wears out and he sort of tires down the back stretch, but he also is quite good at conserving energy for those last spells. Like he will take 2 minutes and 30 seconds off of the round, and then he will explode in the last 30 seconds or the last 40 seconds of the round with like devastating power shots that will either take you out, wobble you, or really hurt you. Now, those shots, that little 40 seconds may not be enough to win him the round as a whole, but the damage is going to bank. And if he carries that on through the first half of the fight, I see Joseph Parker in problems in that second half. But with that being said, I feel that this fight, both guys have got very good chins. Joseph Parker had to get consistently beaten down for the 11 rounds to get knocked out by Joe Joyce. And Joe Joyce just literally worked almost every second of every round, leaned on him, leant on him, just came in with the jab, constantly forced him to work. Zhang is not going to be able to do that. He's not the stamina monster that Joe Joyce is. And I think because of that, Parker's going to be able to slow the fight down at times when he needs to get his breathers, get his rest. I think he's going to be able to beat Zhang to the punch on several occasions, especially towards the back half of the fight. And he's going to be competitive. He's going to, and I feel like he's going to stay in there and stick teeth strong all the way to the end of the fight. I do, however, think that based on the first half of the fight, Zhang being the more accurate, the more impactful, and probably the more eye-catching for what that may be worth to the judges watching, and his ability to nick rounds at the end as well. He will, even if he does nothing for 2 or 3 rounds, like trying to reserve and regain some energy, rounds 10, 11 and 12, he'll work in at least one of those rounds. And I think he would have banked enough rounds in the early part of the fight that he ends up winning this fight via a decision. So that is going to be my prediction. I do think that Zhang Zhilei is going to win this fight via decision. It could be a real close one, like a 115, 113, maybe even like a 115, 114, maybe a couple. There could be a couple of close round draws in a couple of rounds as well. But yeah, I do think that Zhang wins. I think it does go the distance, and I think it does go to points. Now, that being said, I like watching both fighters. Obviously, as you guys will know, Sean George is friend of this channel, friend of Undefeated channel. I've spoken to him several times. We speak in the background. I've got a lot of respect for his team. Joseph Parker has actually always been one of my favorite heavyweights, especially since the heavyweight division was a thing from 2015, 2016 onwards. I've always enjoyed watching Joseph Parker. There were some times where I was losing hope in him, and his friendship, relationship, situation, whatever it is with Tyson Fury doesn't really sit that well with me. But outside of that, I like a lot about him. Everyone knows I'm very respectful and on sort of that Polynesian and Maui, sort of those Maui Samoan cultures. And as I said, he's a fellow Capricorn like myself, so I respect Joseph Parker in that sense, and I always like to see him do well. But I do think that he will lose this one on points. But yeah, all right, okay. Let me check the chat real quick. See what we say here. All right, Tony says, I think Parker puts in a high work rate to negate Zhang's Chinese power. I don't think the work rate is going to be as high as you think, especially early. The second half of the fight, possibly, but not early. Ron A. Parker is going to have to be really careful in the first 6. Zhang's sharp counters are a problem. I would pick Parker, but I can't trust his mentality. I'm picking Zhang. That's very fair. Tone. I know he was ill for a while, but I'm uncertain about Zhang's gas tank. I mean, look, I think everyone, that's the running theme with him. That's a big concern to everyone. So I think that he knows how to manage his energy reserves better now, and he doesn't really waste shots. If you look at his accuracies when he's actually fighting, he's actually quite accurate. He normally lands about 40 to 50% of all shots. So he doesn't waste a huge amount. So yeah, I feel like that will be something that negates his the gas tank if he manages the reserves and just shoots for accuracy instead. Fidel to Waldy says Parker is too hittable and Zhang is a master of setting you up for a headshot. Very valid comment. Can't argue with that one. Tony says Parker is comfortable boxing giants. Joyce Wilder. Well, that's not really true because Joyce beat the brakes off of him. He thought he wasn't comfortable in that Joyce fight in any round. He won quite a few of them, but he never won any rounds and you thought, oh, this is about to be his fight. He was not comfortable in that fight at all. So I disagree with that. What I do think is that he's good enough. He's able to negate guys that have good straight shots. So like Anthony Joshua had straight shots. Parker was able to negate that by dipping just underneath the shot. Wilder as well, he's able to just get underneath the trajectory and go to the inside to work the body. That's one good thing. But against Joyce, disagree totally. Fidel were told to Waldy says, and how did it turn out for him with Joyce? He's probably the slowest heavyweight since Valiev, and Wilder has no technical ability. Okay, so you're responding to Tony's comment. Zhang is technically one of the best and has top 3 power. Very, very valid point yet again. Philip answer. Okay, apparently Canelo Munguia is agreed for T-Mobile Arena and it's on Prime Video pay-per-view and his own pay-per-view. Okay, that's interesting. Is it worth putting on 2 separate pay-per-view channels? Maybe. I mean, he must be getting, maybe he's going to get part of the bag from each side. Maybe he's going to get like 17 million from each, or like 20 million a piece rather than the 35 from one, and that might work. It'll be interesting to see what the numbers are looking like, and at least you'll get a global reach. Prime will be all over the globe, and so will the zone, so makes sense, I suppose. Obviously that's bigging up Philip. Fidel, how many southpaws has Joseph Parker fought before? Not many. I think 3, and they were all very early in his career. I'm not going to go through the list, but I think he's fought about 3 of them. But with that being said, I mean, his current trainer Andy Lee is a southpaw, so he would have been, even when they were doing pads for the last year and a half, he's probably been doing a lot of pads in that southpaw stance, getting potentially ready for maybe like a Usyk or someone else, because there's a lot of heavyweights now that are southpaws. So I can assume that he's probably not too bad when it comes to the southpaw stance. But yeah, that front foot positioning will be very crucial in that fight. Philip answer, base, do you think AG Ngannou has Joyce versus Zhang vibes to it? No. The reason being because I think everyone knew that Zhang was a problem. They thought, oh well, Joyce will basically, he'll be able to just get him out of there with the tiredness at the end. But everyone knew that, you know, Zhang there was abilities there, whereas Ngannou is still kind of an unknown quantity in that sense. And he's been talking up this gas tank thing very heavily in sort of the lead up to this. So and obviously Anthony Joshua is a lot more defensively astute and a lot more pragmatic than Joe Joyce is in the ring. So I don't see it having those kind of vibes, but it's still a dangerous fight. Like in the heavyweight division, as I say, like one shot changes everything. The skill gap between boxers at heavyweight is a lot shorter and smaller than it is in other weight classes where people are more nimble. In heavyweight, a lot of it's based on power and having a good engine. If you've got those two things, you can normally make a pretty good heavyweight. So because the gap in class is so much smaller at that higher weight, everyone's got a puncher's chance to do something. But we'll talk about sort of that, I guess, a little bit later on, as soon as we get to that fight shortly. Fidel to Waldy, I saw an interview where Zhang said he changed his lifestyle because he was drinking, not working out like a tough athlete, etc. From here on, his conditioning will only get better. I mean, yeah, look, he can get his conditioning a little bit better, but the question is, how much can you really improve? He's already turning 41 now. There's not many years left of his career. So even if he ekes out another couple percentile, it's not going to drastically improve. Like who he is now is who he's going to be for the rest of his career. That's kind of how I see that. Come on, pad work can't replace actual fight experience. Otherwise, AJ would still be champion. Yeah, but what I'm saying is that being someone on those pads, remember the same way that he was working the pads with him in the public workout from the southpaw stance, he's probably given him pointers on how to work and fight against those people. Not to mention Tyson Fury. I know that when he's been sparring with Tyson likes to go southpaw from time to time, and he would have been in there with other southpaws, and ultimately he's going to rely on his speed and the fact that he's going to be the faster individual in there, especially off foot, than Joe Joyce, than Zhang. So I don't think the southpaw thing will play as much of an issue in this one. But there will be some adjustment to be made in those first rounds. I will totally agree with you on that one. And with that, now let's go to the main event, which is obviously the main reason why everyone will be tuning into the card. There's brilliant fights on the undercard. We all know that, but there are. This is obviously where people are looking at, and this is where people believe the sort of the bulk of the interest is. Actually, just before I go into that, Fidel's left another comment. Good point, base. But we have examples where fighters got better conditioning in their 40s. The most exceptional being Foreman. Yeah, but Foreman's work rate also decreased a lot when he was in his 40s compared to what he was doing in his 20s. So I don't know if that's his conditioning or if that's just the fact that he was managing his energy a lot better. But I agree with you. There are some examples, but those are very much outliers more so than the norm. But yeah, okay. So look, now when we get to this main event, ultimately we all know what we're looking at here. We're looking at Francis Ngannou, 6'4". It must be about 280 something pounds that he's going to be near enough in the ring. You look at him, he still don't look like he's got an ounce of fat on him, like just muscular, just a big, strong, natural, viscerally powerful man, basically. Whereas obviously every time you kind of looked at AJ throughout the years, you always looked, okay, he's been heavy in the gym. His strength has come from a lot of hard work in the gym, lifting heavy weights, like strength and conditioning, repetitions, and eating well. Whereas Francis Ngannou he looks like he has to go in the gym just to drop natural bulk. He just looks like that kind of an individual. Now, this fight is going to be won and lost on two things. AJ is going to win this fight via the jab, or Francis Ngannou is going to win this fight via positioning. Now, when you look at the two of them, Anthony Joshua is definitely the quicker of the two. I feel like the reconstructed knee surgery that Francis Ngannou had does sort of take some of his former athleticism away. And obviously with the bulk he does have, while he is very explosive, he is a more, he's got a lug more around the ring, so it will take him a bit longer to get to the target. Now you'll find that a lot of Francis Ngannou's shots don't fly straight. He's a striker that employs a lot of sort of sweeping shots, hooking shots, arcing uppercuts. Anthony Joshua has a much better straight game when it comes to that straight jab. He can affect that jab really straight, centrally. When he steps in and steps behind his backhand, if he really wants to, he can apply the backhand straight rather than arcing that round the sides of the guard as well. Francis Ngannou has got a very, very good trigger counter. He's very good at punching when you punch, especially when it's with the backhand. Like when it comes to sort of maybe the jab for jab, he won't necessarily do it on that. But when he sees a tell that you're about to launch your backhand at him, that's when he will normally come sort of around the side of yours, especially if he's fighting from the opposite stance that you're fighting at that moment, and he'll try and come around the side of it and catch you in that moment. Now the danger for this, and one of the things that Anthony Joshua is going to have to contend with in this fight, this is going to be the first person he's fought with a longer reach than him, which means that if Francis Ngannou was able to straighten his punches out and actually and effectively strike with very straight, strong punches rather than arcing punches, his shots will always get to the target. Well, they won't get there quicker, but they'll always get to the target before AJ's shots, because AJ's going to have to walk into that line of fire in order to be able to land his shot, whereas Francis can always catch him from the outside if he wanted to be on the outside. So that's going to be something for AJ to navigate. But I feel that the first half of this fight specifically is going to be pretty low volume. I know Ngannou said he's coming to basically do damage and attack whatever he can attack, fight whatever he can fight. He wants to make a point and just give a good fight. But I can see this fight being won by AJ in those first rounds just off of feints, foot feints, jab feints, just feint and making basically doing it, just being enough outside of trajectory for Ngannou not to be able to catch you, but just making him bite on feints, pushing him, trying to push him back slightly with those feints, making him have to spring back and then have to spring back in, but keeping him busy, keeping his legs having to move, not ever allowing him to set his feet. I don't see a lot of punches taking place in those first few rounds. I can see obviously a couple stabs to the body here and there, a couple jabs up top, like a couple masking shots, a couple blinding shots, maybe attempting a backhand here or there, but I can see a lot of the investment being towards the body and just making Ngannou move. Now on the flip side to that, I can see when Ngannou does bite on some of those feints, I can see him ultimately then trying to come back with a jab. I can see everything with him is very not choreographed, but it's very straight down the line. You kind of know what he's going to do. It's going to be jab, backhand, jab, backhand. Occasionally you might get a jab, backhand, like hook to the body, but everything is always like one jab and then the backhand follows after if the backhand's going to come in. It's never like a double jab to get into range or a triple jab, or the backhand lead hook. Everything is sort of, it comes from the traditional teachings, and I think because of that, I feel like AJ is going to get a read of his patterns fairly early on in the fight. I do think Ngannou will probably hit arms a bit, maybe even hit gloves when AJ goes to the phone booth, and AJ will probably feel some of the power and say, okay, I've got to stay calm, I've got to stay composed. But I feel like he's gonna use steady and subtle pressure to just make Ngannou throw when he doesn't want to throw, keep him moving, keep him turning, keep him biting on feints, just applying steady pressure here and here from about round 4 or round 5. That's when I can see AJ proper at this point starting to try and employ the backhand to the body especially. I don't think he's going to try and go for the head to start off with. I think he's too smart to know that. I think he knows that is not the place, because he can get caught with a trigger counter, or Francis will be able to he'll be able to affect that. I think he's gonna aim a lot of his heavy hard shots to the chest and to the body to try and take a bit of the air out of the tires, so to speak, of Francis Ngannou. I can see Ngannou coming on strong around about sort of round, I think after a strong round 5 for AJ, not much being happening in the first 3 to 4 rounds, AJ's going to have a strong round 5. I think Francis Ngannou's then going to have a strong round 6. Not necessarily like doing anything great or wobbling or having a huge effect on AJ from a physical standpoint, but I feel like he's just going to do a lot better in that round. Probably even maybe walk AJ down, pressure him, make him have to fight a bit more than he wants to, and yeah, just affect him in that fashion. But I do think that by him doing that, and by AJ obviously sustaining a pace, a pretty consistent pace from early on, I think round 7 and round 8 are going to be rounds where Francis is trying to basically recover, refuel the gas tank, refuel the engine, but AJ is going to start working. He's going to work to the body. He's going to start landing the jab a bit more frequently. He's going to start stepping into the jab. I think he's going to start stepping into the backhand as well. And I think he's going to pile on significant damage in round 7 and round 8. And then I think in round 9, Francis Ngannou is going to attempt to come back. But I think he's going to be physically drained and exhausted, and I think AJ at this point is going to be able to unleash a salvo. Potentially he might be able to knock Francis Ngannou down, but I do think that he's going to pile on damage at this point, and enough sustained unanswered shots from Francis Ngannou, who at this point is just extremely tired, that the referee just jumps in, or maybe the corner throw in the towel. I do think Anthony Joshua gets the stoppage in round 9. It won't be a clean KO. It won't be like Francis Ngannou gets knocked out cold, anything like that. But I think he's just going to be so tired that he's gonna get dominated, outpunched, outlanded, and then they're gonna call the towel. The ref is gonna just jump in and stop it. Now, of course, it could very well go to all 10 rounds, and Anthony Joshua wins a very dominant, like 98, 92, 99, 91 type fight. But realistically, I can see him doing enough and just working and turning on enough of the pressure for him to win this fight via 9th round KO. So rather than do he's either going to win late or go on points like everyone else wants to say, I'm going to stand firm in an actual decision and not give variables. So I do think it will be KO TKO 9th round for Anthony Joshua. That's my prediction. Now I'm going to check. Let's see. What's this? FYI, at the weigh-in, Conor Benn and Manny Pacquiao. Yeah, don't really care about that. I know about it, but I don't care. Fidel Tawaldi says, what I never hear anyone acknowledging is that AJ is also the biggest guy and most powerful puncher that Ngannou fought. Bigger than Gagne or Lewis. I'm excited to see how Ngannou reacts after a punch. Well, that being said, I don't know if Cyril Gane or Derek Lewis punch harder than Alistair Overeem. Not sure, but that is a valid point. Like, he has been in there with but he's never been in there obviously with a big powerful striker like Anthony Joshua that's trained to only use his hands, whereas all those other guys are trained to use their entire bodies. So yeah, you could quite be right on that. Declan says, any ideas why Ngannou is getting backed? Price is moving in, Joshua drifting, because they see the size of him at the weigh-in and they know that he can take a shot, and they know that he would probably be the hardest puncher that Anthony Joshua's ever faced. And a lot of people believe Anthony Joshua doesn't have a chin for some reason. I don't know why they believe that, but that's all the reason. You see what condition he's in. He's obviously before the Fury fight, he was doing a lot of pad work which looked horrible, and people didn't look people thought, oh, he looks horrible, he looks awkward, this isn't gonna be a thing. So there was no close bets. Now on this one, they know that he can actually box, and they know that he's been boxing all his life. He just hasn't had it as a professional discipline. So yeah, big ups to the love. And Declan says, also predicted the same, stopped on his feet or towel comes in. Yeah, that's my prediction. I think that Joshua is obviously going to show the levels in elite boxing, and I think it's going to be very, like I said, I don't think there's going to be a lot happening in the first 3 to 4 rounds. I think they're going to be very, very mundane and very pedestrian, and things will sort of start to come alive from about round 5. Maybe to midway late in the 4th, but I definitely think from sort of round 5 onwards is when like the action's going to start to pick up and the intrigue's going to start to pick up. But yeah, look, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, I am going to leave it there. I do want to thank everyone for tuning in. I hope you've been entertained. I hope you've got what you needed from this. Any predictions, leave your predictions. Either do it in the live chat, or when this video uploads, put your predictions in the comments, so that the algorithm can pick up the card. I greatly appreciate that. But yeah, with that being said, I will leave it there and bid you adieu. So until the next time, that's the live version of Basis Picks locked.